I'm Ross, a curious parent.
And I'm John, an education expert.
This is From the Sidelines.
Bite-sized study tips to help you help them through.
So one of the things that we don't claim to be as parents is not knowledgeable experts on everything. But I think one of the things that we do know is there's a lot of noise around there. That's lots of information, lots of resources, let's say, things coming from schools and colleges as to how we can help our children to succeed. And the reason why we established From the Sidelines was about kind of cutting through that noise and providing nuggets of information that can be real practical tools for yourselves to help you help them through.
That's right, Ross. And I think one of the things we want to do is really make sure we simplify information. We, like Ross said, cut through the noise, and we give it in bite-sized chunks, whether it's in our infographics that we have on our social media feeds that you can download, save in your camera roll, go back to, share with your child so they can see it, whether it's in our 1-minute study hack videos, which are short, succinct, to the point, little tutorials really and how-to videos and explainers giving you the information in a really succinct fashion, or whether it's one of these podcasts where we get into a little bit more detail, get under the skin, and maybe Ross asks the questions that you parents want to ask because we're both parents ourselves. So yeah, whatever it is, hopefully the way we're giving this information that you can digest it easily, and as Ross says, cut through the noise and get to the get-go.
Let's do it then. On that note, let's get to the get-go.
Let's do it.
Habit stacking.
Yes.
So we all have habits. I'm not sure I know what stacking of my habit means, but can you tell us more?
Yeah, so what's really interesting is that we all have habits, like you say. Even if we don't think we do things at a certain time every day, whether it's cleaning our teeth, whether it's getting changed, whether it's eating, whether it's going to work. We have things that we do regularly. And we all, from time to time, would like to have a new habit or develop a new habit. Now, that might be, for instance, a New Year's resolution. And how many times are they broken by, January 1st, 2nd, or 3rd? Because actually, we know it's not about us being weak. We know that establishing new habits is very, very difficult. Okay? And we know that as adults. So the same is going to be, for our children as well. And what habit stacking is, it's a technique that allows you to identify a new habit that you might want. So it might be that your child, or you want your child to do some self-quizzing every day, or some reading, or to clean their bedroom, or to make their bed, or even open their curtains. The things that we're kind of going, yeah, I wish my
fundamentals.
I wish my kids would do that as well. So whatever it is that you want them to develop a new habit for that they haven't been successful in developing, we stack it and we attach it to a pre-existing habit. And the pre-existing habit is the cue for that to happen and the trigger. So we're hopefully making it a lot easier because there's a cue, as in you now need to do this. Whereas if there's no cue, those habits are here today and gone tomorrow. So that ultimately is what it is.
So what does this have to do with learning?
Right. Well, learning is all about developing great study habits. And what I've certainly found from my 25 years in education is that generally, as a generalization here, the more organized students are, and the ones with the most effective and efficient learning habits in the classroom as well as at home are generally the students that achieve really well. So it might be that you want your child to be doing some reading every night, or to be doing some independent study 2 or 3 times a week to get into the habit of it. And we hear ourselves saying it all the time, oh, you need to get into the habit of doing this. So it's about learning habits and study habits away from the school, because if you are ultimately competing for the best grades with children around the country, if your child is competing for for those best grades, and other children have got great study habits outside of the classroom and are doing learning at home as well, and your child isn't and is only learning from 9 o'clock until 3 o'clock, then generally those students are probably going to be achieving better because they've got those great learning habits and study habits with them. So that's why it's really important for learning as well.
So could you give us an example of how this works, how parents and carers can get involved in doing this?
Yeah, so it might be that, let's say you want them to, a great one is that I'd like my child to do some more regular reading and to develop a reading habit. So it might be that you want them to read for 20 minutes every day. And a great way to do that is then to think, well, how can I use habit stacking so that they get into the mindset of reading every day and into that habit? Now, with habit stacking, you can attach a habit either before or after the existing habit. So what that means is you might then say, after you get changed out of your uniform, you are going to do 20 minutes reading. So the getting changed out of the uniform is the trigger. But equally, you could say, before you get out of your uniform, you're going to do 20 minutes reading. Okay? So that the getting changed is the trigger, but it's done before. Now, as a parent, you might think that doing it before might be more effective because they then can't say, oh, I'm doing something else now. Well, actually, you're holding back almost that trigger and that reward of getting changed to do the reading. But equally, you might think as a parent, actually, I want them to get changed first, and that's the nice trigger, and they get comfy, and then they sit down on their bed or in their chair and they do some reading. So irrespective of whether you want to do it before or after, that's a nice way to do it. And what we're saying here is, going back to the last question you asked actually about kind of why is this important then and why do we want to do this? Well, we know from our lives as well, our adult lives, that something called world-class basics, if we just do the basic things but do them really, really well and do them all the time and fall into habits of them, that's how ultimately we perform really well in life. So the more we can do that with our children, the more important that is.
And just as you mentioned in there then, so for me to understand further, it's more about having attaching it to a tangible thing that happens every day.
Correct.
Isn't it? That's the key thing. It's not necessarily something really exciting. It's something that you do that's a tangible thing that takes away then that element of when are you going to do this and that conversation. It's just you do this every day, therefore either before or after you are going to do X. Is that correct?
It's 100% correct. You're just identifying a physical trigger that then enables this new. So it might be that you might want to say, if I give you some examples of that, people might think, well, we don't have a lot of habits in our house, or they don't have it. Well, things like after you wake up, people wake up every day, right? There's a habit. So after you wake up, or before you have breakfast, after you have breakfast, before or after you brush your teeth, after you make a cup of coffee, before tea, when you get home, before you get out of there's all of these cues and triggers that we can find and be creative with. Oh, okay, I can see that. Yeah, I can do that. Or after you get out of the shower, there's so many things that happen. And if we attach the new habit that we've identified, maybe between you both, that you've decided that you're going to sit down and we're going to say, right, what do we think between us, so if you and my son, what do we think, Ross, would be really useful as a habit that we would develop over the next 6 to 12 months that would help you with your school? Well, I want to do some more reading. Great. But I find it difficult and I never find the chance to do it all the time. I do, okay, so let's attach it to X, Y, Z, whatever it is. And then if that's before I go to bed or after I get changed, then you just need to make sure as the parent, you are looking out for that trigger and making sure that you're the one monitoring whether or not that happens. So if it's before I get changed, so when your child, you might be at home, you might not be at home, but actually, are you checking that? And are you checking that they've done that? And looking out for the trigger and then helping them keep that nice, strong study habit.
And it's got to help the adult as well, hasn't it? In terms of, that you've got that specific time of a day, and at that specific time of a day that essentially your child will be reading or will be doing something of that description. So I think it helps everybody. And then aside from that, so obviously part of what we're looking to do is very much geared towards helping adults to help young people and children in terms of their progression. But how do some of these tips and tricks help the adult in their adult lives as well?
It's exactly the same, Ross. And as we've said right at the start, this is about developing habits, whether it's a study habit, a learning habit, or whether it's just a general habit that you want to develop. This isn't a technique for how children learn study habits. It's a technique for how human beings create strong habits. So that's a great way for us to do it as adults as well. I'm using it in my own life at the moment, actually. So I want to do more reading. So I'm attaching a study habit to, after I have my tea, I am going to sit down and do 30 minutes, 40 minutes of reading. And that's really helping me because I constantly had that, I like to read, I would want to read more. I don't really think I've got the time. Now I've got that trigger and that cue, it's happening. And within 2 or 3 days, it's already become I'm not having to then push myself and go, oh, that's the trigger. I have to read now. No, I don't have to read. I'm enjoying reading, and it's become a natural part of finish my dinner, clear the kitchen, sit down and read. And it just becomes automatic. And when you get it to be an automated part, that becomes a real strong habit. You might then at some point attach a new habit to that new habit, because that's then, so after I finish reading, because that's a really strong habit now, I'm going to attach something new. And we can almost then multi-stack these new habits together. And it's just a really easy way. So hopefully people can find, whether it's adults, whether it's parents, whether it's carers, whether it's children, we can all find uses for that in our lives. And it just makes us nice and organised and feel, I suppose, in control of the things that we want to achieve as human beings.
And built around that phrase that we'll all have heard, that consistency is key kind of phrase as well. And that creates consistency, doesn't it, in daily lives. So, brilliant. Another great nugget. Another great piece of information, John, definitely.
Yeah, that consistency, world-class basics, doing those little things, but doing them just consistently well all the time. That is what produces great results. Not a flash in the pan every now and again, or doing something 1 week before an exam. It's what we do all the time that really defines us as human beings. And
as we always say at this point, we want to hear from you. We want to maybe see some of the habit stackings in action as such. Would be great. Just so that we can share this amongst all of the parents and carers and champions of young people, so that they can see more of this in action and understand perhaps how that could be incorporated further with their child as they run through.
Yeah, we'd love to know what your new habits that you're working with your children on, and what you're stacking them to, and whether it's before or after, and also whether or not it's worked before or it's better after. And again, that might be nice to share with our community as well in terms of how that's working. So please feel free to drop us a line, tag us on social media, however you kind of reach out to us to tell us what you're currently developing and the new habits or even in your own adult life as well, if it's helped you as well. So that'd be great to hear.
So thanks for joining us as always, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.